Well, the 2013 legislative session closed on a good note for Minnesota schools. Lawmakers passed legislation to accelerate the school payback shift and to add dollars to K through 12 and higher education. But is it as good as educators hoped? Our Jamil Donath spoke with Bemidji officials to find out.
Dennis, lawmakers are calling it a historic investment. The education finance bill increased state funding to K through 12 and higher education for the biennium. That would include a 2-year tuition freeze, as well as an agreement to pay back the $2.4 billion borrowed from schools by 2014. So how does this help schools? We took a closer look.
I appreciate the investment in our children.
After years of cuts, Minnesota lawmakers agreed to add to education in this year's budget.
As far as the last decade, this is historic investment in education.
K through 12's funding is being increased by more than $230 million over 2 years.
Our district and all the districts in the state of Minnesota will be in better shape because of the legislative session.
Of that, $134 million will fund all-day, everyday kindergarten in every Minnesota school.
Funding all-day, everyday kindergarten is huge.
Higher education will receive an additional $250 million from the state for the biennium, 50% of that to freeze tuition costs.
This is the first new investment in higher education in Minnesota since 2007.
But within all these savings comes a cost.
In 12, 15 years of disinvestment at the state level, we weren't going to turn it around in one legislative session. We just can't do that.
While K through 12 schools are getting a 3% raise, the weighted percentage districts receive per student will decrease.
That could result in a huge loss of money.
And for universities, a tuition freeze will help students, but it will cap the school's biggest funding source.
Tuition dollars are a very important source of our funding, and so if tuition is going to stay flat, then we've got to make sure that we keep our students and attract more.
Nonetheless, educators say this is the start of progress.
It's never enough, but I think this is an important step forward.
We're better off than we currently are through the legislation.
Currently, 61% of higher education funding comes from tuition and 39% from the state. With the bill, 59% would come from tuition and 41% from the state. K through 12 would also see a half-cent increase per each school meal, which would equate to about $4,000 additional dollars a day.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamil Donath reporting tonight. You can find a link to the full breakdown of the education finance bill on our Facebook page.
If you've enjoyed this segment of Lakeland News, please consider making a tax-deductible contribution to Lakeland Public Television.